Hey everyone, it's your favorite disabled revolutionary, and today I wanted to talk about, and yes, the glasses are coming off for this one, guys. What I feel to be the biggest problem in the disabled community and something which holds us back a ton, and it's self-hatred. Um and being that July is disability pride month, I don't know, address it more directly. I know I've talked about how to overcome it um before, but I've never really talked about just generally about the concept of self-hatred as a disabled person. And in terms of that, I do think that from the beginning, we as disabled people are taught to hate ourselves. Um, just for being born different in a way which most of the time we can't even help. Um, and that's wrong. Of course, that's wrong. And the reason why that is because of the way people in most of the world think about disability itself and what it represents to others. And typically they see it in terms of what they call the medical model of disability. So disability is something to be fixed, right? And to be cured and, to be gotten rid of. That's in industrial societies, that's the predominating model, especially in the US. Less so in the Nordic countries. Um and a lot of parts of Europe, but definitely in like the North American region. Now, in pretty much all the other places, you have what you call a tragic model of disability, and that means that disability, it's in the name, it's seen as a tragedy. The assumption is that this person is not going to be able to do much with their lives, and they deserve pity and charity, and only that. And you know as someone who, for a long time in his life, being an immigrant, being a poor immigrant from Guatemala, right, to the United States, those models overlap. Sometimes, or I would say a lot of the times, charity in the form of medical equipment, treatment, is given by people who view disability tragically. That's what motivates it to want to be fixed. But it can also be just stand alone as pity. Um and I'm not gonna talk about what I think are the origins of those, of specifically the tragic or the medical model. Um that's for another video. I actually um like to adopt a composite model alongside the third model, which is the social model. And that basically says, that it has nothing to do with either, tragedy or medicine. The problem is society. Society isn't built for people uh like us that are either neurodivergent or physically disabled. Um and you know, I still think the model has its problems in the sense that there are just some things that even if society tries its hardest to accommodate just aren't gonna be ever possible, and that's okay. Especially among activists again in North America, I don't know, they have kind of this obsession which I do think feeds into the self-hatred of like we have to be just like other people, when in that sense it doesn't really matter what model you use to think about disability. It really doesn't. But I do think that even the social model, as nuanced as it is, can lead you into that because you think, oh, like, you know, if only society would do this or that, or if only I was good enough to live up to society's or overcome society's barriers. That still is a common line of thinking, speaking personally. Um, of course, a healthier way to view that would be like, well, once again, society wasn't really built for us, so I gave it my best shot, and that was that. I'm gonna move on to something new. And, I really do think that the twin of self hatred, more or less, is toxic positivity. Because no, not everything is gonna be all right. Sometimes you do need to give up and readjust your expectations or form a new plan of action, and that's okay. There's no reason to hate yourself over that. um but one thing that I will say, and this is the part of disabled self-hatred that isn't really talked about a lot, but we, again, because able-bodied people are seen as the standard of like what it means to be good and like be successful. um I noticed that that's another thing that fuels able disabled self-hatred, right? Because we want to so badly be accepted by able-bodied people that we spend our lives just trying to please them. And this affects all sorts of relationships, from family to friendships to relationships. On the family counterpart, how many times have you guys simply given in to an able bodied family member just because either of their authority or because they think they know what's best for you? And of course, respect your family, guys. I'm not saying, a lot of the times they probably do know what's best for you. For a lot of us, our family is the only support we have. But I mean, think about all those times you wanted to assert yourself, say no to this treatment or um that medicine or whatever because of some, maybe not primary side effects, let's say, or secondary side effects. And how many times did your medical professional, able-bodied medical professional or family member say, Well, you know what? No, your opinion doesn't matter. And once again, sometimes, especially if you're younger, that may be necessary. I'm not saying you shouldn't try your hardest to do the best you can with your conditions, of course. But at the same time, I'm talking about the underlying assumption that disability is bad, right? And for friendships, let me ask, um, you guys, how many of you guys have a majority disabled friend group? How many of you guys actively seek out other disabled people to befriend, to socialize with in real life? I understand some may not, but even online, right? Like, and I'm not saying you have to be some sort of activist, right? I'm just talking about, like, seeking out people with similar experiences, as all humans do. Um, and by the way, people are gonna accuse me because of what I'm about to say later on, but I just want to make clear, like, I'm not saying to not interact with able-bodied people or something like that. Obviously, like, depending on your condition, that's gonna be impossible. The problem is that, number one, it's people's attitudes towards us, and number two, like, there really is no, especially in this capitalist economic system, there is no true equality or true freedom for the disabled person unless they are able to, for example, pay for their own care. And I've already gone into that, how our screwed up welfare system disincentivizes you from uh really trying to um even get to that level in terms of income earning, where, right, like, your decisions aren't mediated by your family in some way. We talk about um independence, but when it comes to disabled people having um a shot at paying for their own care and stuff like that, no one ever talks about, excuse me, the insanely low caps, excuse me, for Medicaid, do they? And of course, once more, this could be solved by a single payer system, Medicare for all. Let's go. But the either way, guys, yeah, we just have no community at all since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's kind of like, after legislation was passed, we sort of just forgot about our common culture and our identity. Um, Now, I have seen recent upticks in protesting with the recent Medicaid cuts, which I read they actually took them out. So that's good. Like, in the process of it getting the bill passed, which is fantastic. And it's partly because Republicans know that, like, once they take effect, even if it is in 2028, which is a part that I didn't see a lot of people reporting, but they're gonna lose a ton of constituents even on the optics, because the thing is, the people most affected by that are red states. I live in the western and northern reaches of Appalachia, and I know many of the people from where I live would would be the same, guys. And yeah, but like we're always chasing after the validation of able-bodied people. And now let me get to relationships as well. Like, you know, I feel like, especially with the culture, again, the ableist culture, systemically ableist culture, um, not having a disabled partner is also put up as like the ideal. And let me just say before I go any further, um, I'm not against interabled partnerships. I'm not against, one being able to walk and one not being able to, or one being neurodivergent and the other not. Uh, on principle, of course, I have nothing against that. It's just that we're discouraged from doing that. We're taught that we are not desirable. We're taught that a disabled family can't be a thing. Um, and that we shouldn't even consider that. And to me, that's just wrong because once again, it goes back to the system. It goes back to the fact, well, we could probably have that if there were more economic doors available to us. Like we could have that if the government cared more about our people. Um and look guys, if you're a person who, like, for example, gets the opportunity to have sexual relations with another person that you wanna do it with, I'm not opposed to that. Of course not, because the thing is, like, I'm also aware of the reality that many of us won't get that many chances in our lives to do that. So, of course, take it. And, of course, if you really feel like, um, an able-bodied person or whatever is the one for you, like really deeply in your heart, and they support you and they um support your disabilities and neurodivergencies, well, by all means, then yeah, go ahead. Of course, like I said, on principle, I'm not opposed to that. But I personally, um that's not for me. Let me just put it that way. I don't think, with what I've been through with the able bodied community, that I could ever be with an able bodied man or woman at this point. I would prefer to um have um a partner, and maybe even later like a spouse, that had my condition, cerebral palsy, and preferably was in a wheelchair. And I do think that other disabled people should at least give first dibs and preference to other disabled people. If you really want to build a community, it's gonna have to start with the family. And unless we don't start loving ourselves and each other in that way and really building, or at least trying to build as much as is possible within an ableist society, a non-ableist family, we will never um move forward as a people and as a culture. I'm sorry, I just don't think we will. And um yeah, love yourselves, love each other, be proud of who you are, be proud of being disabled. Um And as far as getting to the point of building families, especially if you're physically disabled and you marry another physically disabled person, for example, um, and you want to have kids, and the actual act of making children is going to be difficult, I'm gonna again diverge from the common opinion that says, oh, well, so you should marry someone able bodied so they can help you out. That's perfectly fine, but I say that the more permanent solution is to get us integrated more into the economy, raise the caps for Medicaid and other welfare programs so that we can achieve a comfortable standard of living on our own, add grace periods. Um and if you do eventually get to that point where you want to do that with a partner, um have those conversations with your aides. Ask them. I know it's embarrassing, but it's the only way. It's the only way, unfortunately. So, yeah, once again, be proud to be disabled. Love yourselves, love each other, love the community, guys. Give yourselves to the community, and happy Disability Pride Month. All right, bye.